Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And logistics is a tricky business to be in a world that's concerned about sustainability, right? Almost by definition, you have to move stuff and consume energy to do it. And yet there are ways of optimizing. There are ways of thinking about alternative fuels, alternative routes.
Yeah.
Famously, UPS studied its route logistics, and their delivery trucks in the U.S. no longer make left turns because they found they're just sitting there idling, waiting too long. And so in that manner, there may be some interesting fixes that you can find when you apply a bit of analytics. Nowadays, we would use maybe machine learning, AI, but even simpler tools. So tell us a little bit about how you're trying to make your efforts more sustainable.
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you for having me. You're right. It is tricky, but it's a huge opportunity. And if you think of, so Link Logistics, we're one of the largest owners of infill warehouses in the United States. We have over 500 million feet, 9,000 customers, and about 5% of US GDP flows through our buildings. So we get to see a lot, but I think there is a huge opportunity that all our customers are leading, whether it's using AI or routing technology to route trucks, whether it's replacing trucks. Amazon's been a front runner, 20,000 electric vehicles. And whether it's from our point of view, one of the things we've really been focused on is, measuring our output or footprint and then reducing it, like trying to really reduce the amount. That's replacing little things like lights in warehouses, takes 20% out of the utility bill, saves customers money, right down to replacing it with solar on roofs. We have 500 million feet of flat roofs that the sun hits every day. It feels like a pretty big opportunity that we can invest around. So we see the challenge as a real opportunity that we can participate around.
What's the hard stuff? What's a tough nut to crack?
Do you know, with solar is a good example. To finance it, you need to have an offtake. Your customers move, so you use community solar. Once governments are involved, that makes it very challenging. What we've been able to do with the scale of us, we're building our own solar company, not building the plant, but really sort of controlling the network. That's new. That's a challenge. The other thing is, I heard someone yesterday talk about, scope 1, 2, 3. 3 would be FedEx or our customers. We have 9,000 businesses that operate in our warehouses. Not everyone is as green as, say, DHL, and it's trying to get them to get on the journey to invest around it. We've been pleased. 90+% of our customers have real goals. They're focused on it, and 30% of our smaller businesses have real goals. That was 10% 5 years ago. So it is catching on, but I think a lot of it is education and investment from customers as well.
If you were to, without naming names, look at the top 10% of your customers in terms of sustainability, environmental footprint, and so on, and let's say the bottom 10%. What are the key behaviors that differentiate them, or what are the practices that might be the dirtiest versus the cleanest? Give us an idea in real terms. What's the difference?
Yeah, I think they're public about it. They publicly state what they're going to do. They invest real money. This is the best groups. And they're delivering practical solutions.
Like what? Give us examples.
They're electrifying their fleet. That takes a lot of money, a lot of it. And you need the landlord to
diesel trucks versus electrified fleets.
Yeah,
as an example.
Or think of, I'll use Amazon again, 20,000 Rivian trucks running around versus the old UPS trucks. That's what they're doing. The ones that are probably not really advancing a lot, say a lot, do very little. Where I think what you find is people that have practical solutions seem to be making the biggest difference. And it's real and impactful.
I'd mentioned AI in passing, but can you tell us in practical terms, how are you applying AI? And I presume it's machine learning, which has been around for ages. LLMs are fairly new. But how are you finding applications in improving efficiency or sparing fuel or emissions and so on? Give us some concrete ways that you're applying AI.
I think you touched on one, or just route technology, like the ability to route trucks, even as things real-time change in the world, is a huge, you talk about just left in, left out, idling trucks. It's such a simple thing. Imagine doing that with hundreds of thousands of trucks every day. So that's real. For our point of view, using AI technology to design buildings to be more efficient, smaller footprint buildings.
Are you doing that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like we build to LEED certified standards, carbon cure in the walls, so we actually reduce carbon footprint of the actual development itself, but then laying out the building to be more efficient. The other thing,
Carbon Cure is lower carbon cement technology.
That's
is that right?
exactly right.
Yeah, and that it's one of the overlooked opportunities, isn't it? I think that industry, cement alone, is 8% of anthropogenic emissions. Massive footprint.
It's the built environment is a big contributor. We think there's a huge opportunity to invest around that. And scale players do it best. They just have the ability, the capital, they move the needle a little bit more. And then you made a good comment. The future is here. It's just unevenly distributed. Sure. You said that yesterday. It really resonated. The future is here. Carbon Cure has been around. I mean, it's been around for a while.
Right.
It's just unevenly distributed. How can we be a force for good to evenly distribute that amongst all?
Just to take that example, since we were discussing it, how can you justify what might be the incremental expense and management time and effort to incorporate something like a Carbon Cure or other technologies that might have a payoff in the future, that might have an environmental benefit? Because you also have your own investment goals.
Absolutely, yeah.
You have fiduciary goals. You want to make sure you maximize your investments. How did you justify that sort of investment in sustainability?
So the very first one, there's a little bit of a leap. You have to believe in it. You have to actually believe customers want it. Everything we're doing, we think it's a benefit for our customers. And then what happens is a DHL's like, wow, I will pay, or I'll lease it a little faster, or I'll stay a little longer, or it's a little greener for me. And then all of a sudden it becomes a little bit more repetitive income off it. So it's really the cost maybe a decade ago was wildly different.
Yeah.
It's a little more expensive, but if you can get a DHL or an Amazon or, some of these, Kuehne Nagel's another big customer of ours that really values this. Pepsi's looking to go to zero carbon buildings. So I think it's the responsibility is on us is to deliver that to customers who we think will pay for it today and in the future.
So you've mentioned multinational customers. They have footprints on both sides of the Atlantic. The winds are blowing in a different direction in the U.S. For reasons well understood. Are you finding that, or are you preparing for an era where your customers may be less interested in the sustainability advantages, at least if they're advertised as such? We've already heard from a SAF company yesterday that said they're rebranding to be called synthetic aviation fuels, not sustainable aviation fuels. And I've heard that from another source as well in the industry. They're rebranding themselves because the word sustainable is blacklisted by the DOGE people. And you're asking for trouble in the new era in the U.S., along with diversity. They have certain watch out words, climate change itself. And so how do you prepare for a world like that? What are you going to stop doing, or what are you going to rebrand?
We're not going to rebrand anything. We actually, again, like the speaker before, talked about practical solutions. I'll use the simplest one. We've spent over $100 million replacing old fluorescent lights to high efficiency lighting. It's part of a sustainability goal. It cuts 25% of energy need. And guess what? It saves 25% of the utility bill. Customers generally are happy to pay less for utilities. I haven't had a customer that wants to pay more yet. I'm still waiting. So we have constantly, even from the very beginning of Link, sustainability is core to our business. We don't have this sustainability function that's separate. It's in everything we do. And what we've really tried to focus on is provide practical solutions that either save money, provide better work environments for their employees, which that's a huge part of well building, well lit, well ventilated, and then hopefully provide better throughput. So if you do those things, you can say it's sustainable, but customers still, and probably the last thing I'd say is, yes, the winds are changing at the political level.
Yeah.
I think if you went and polled customers, that is not changing. Our businesses continue to look for solar, for EV charging at buildings, for battery. They are still committed to this. It's a multi-decade long journey we're on. It's bumpy. Yeah. It was bumpy before as well. but we're committed for the long term.
Let's get the lights up. Let's see if there's a question. I know I'm going to read one from the Slido, which asks about carbon credits. Are you using those? Are you considering using those? Meanwhile, let's see if there's another question from the floor.
We don't use it. We've done additive stuff where we've actually spent money on forestry, the American Forestry Foundation, to create carbon credits, but we've tried to do things in an additive nature versus going and buying them on the market so far.
Are you getting your any kind of pushback, nature-based credits, some of the challenges that were there in that marketplace? Is that partly why you're wary?
Yeah, and we just feel like being additive instead of buying them. Like the first thing, the best kilowatt of energy is the kilowatt you don't use. Our real focus is
the megawatt.
Yeah, the megawatt. Cut that first.
Yeah.
And then replace it with solar, and then we've tried to be additive wherever we possibly can.
Okay, great. A question here.
This is Rad, VP Supply Chain for an e-commerce company. So my question is two. Number one, in the current world of hyper local delivery and all that, where consumer wants everything fast, how this would actually help the fact that we want to reduce the last mile cost. At the same time, we have to give multiple delivery. That's one. Number two, what can we do to incentivize consumer behavior to ensure that they're okay with consolidated delivery and not just kind of, hyperlocal kind of delivery?
Yeah. Well, I try to tell my teenage children that you can consolidate things and get it delivered a little slower. So one thing is, once you deliver to speed, what Amazon has done in the US with their 8 regions, 20% less touches, 20% less miles per delivery. So they have actually, by getting closer and speeding up the supply chain and using AI, they can deliver it less. So that would be the one thing. The second thing is, I think it's replacing archaic, modes of transport, diesel trucks with electric trucks, diesel vans, petrol vans with electric vans, which if you're in the US now, most of the Amazon vans now are electric. So that push to the last mile. And then the other thing I'd say is actually having sustainable buildings. The built environment is it has a huge carbon footprint. So it's on us, the landlord, to really be investing in those buildings and providing a more sustainable actual environment there.
Another quick question. There's a question here. We'll make it fast. The gentleman with his hand up there. Quick question and quick answer, please.
Thank you very much. I'm Lawrence Campbell from the Carbon Trust, and a quick question to you is, have you seen your customers, your large delivery chain, seeing an interest in a low emission delivery separate from your other supply chain? So sort of looking to pay a bit more on a lower per mile delivery separate from your other deliveries?
Yeah, I think that's a broad-based offering. We haven't seen a lot of that yet. We do see commitments to investing around that, but we haven't seen a huge amount from our customers on that right now.
Right, we're out of time. So please give Luca a nice round of applause. Thank you, and good luck with your efforts.
Cheers, thanks.